Hi there, welcome back to The Hidden Economics of Remarkable Women, a podcast from Foreign Policy. I'm Rena Ninan. This season, we're focusing on something that's getting a lot of media attention, the impact of girls.
2023 truly was the year of girl culture. Themes of girlhood were everywhere.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Taylor Swift and Beyonce's shows are giving the U.S. economy an actual boost.
It's certainly been a moment for girls, but we're more interested in understanding the reality of girls. What are the real economics of girlhood? What are the hidden costs? And how could girls actually shake up the global economy? This season, all our stories are about girls. What do they really need to succeed right now? And how can we work with them to get there? For today's show, we're heading to a high school in South Africa. And I want to start with one girl there who has very big dreams.
My name is Thandoletse Ngumalo. I'm 14 years old. I want to be a doctor or an astronaut.
For Thandoletse to become the doctor or astronaut that she wants to be, she needs to be able to stay in school. But there's a little block to that, and it's something many girls in the global north take for granted: access to affordable period products.
It's just because I don't have money to afford to buy and pads.
In South Africa, sanitary products for a month might cost anywhere between $1 and $6. That's actually a really huge sum for low-income households. Individuals living below the poverty line in South Africa make less than $80 a month. And because of these high costs, Thandoletse often improvises to manage her monthly cycle.
I use my towel, or I use maybe a tissue or a bandage. That's what I use sometimes if I don't have pads.
Her experience is frustratingly common across the world. According to the World Bank, as many as 500 million people every month lack access to menstrual products or facilities. This cuts across all countries, including big pockets of the US and the UK. The inability to afford period products is often called period poverty. Not only does period poverty make girls' lives harder, it also impacts their ability to stay in school. Many of them miss days of school during their period, and it can also contribute to them leaving entirely. In India, for example, around 23 million girls drop out of school every year just because they don't have a bathroom at school where they feel comfortable managing their period. Today, we're looking at solutions to period poverty and how truly transformational it would be for girls. Later in the show, I talked to a global expert about how education advocacy and sustainable period products could be a game changer. But first, we'll hear from activists who have successfully advocated for affordable period products in South Africa, including students. Reporter Elna Schutz brings us the rest of this story.
Mvopa High School is in Gqabisa, a rural village in the lush hills of KwaZulu-Natal. A small schoolyard is buzzing as students are returning for a new academic year. While the boys play or go home, Thandoletse Ngumalo and other girls are held aside in a classroom in the sweltering heat for an extra session. Not the most fun thing for your typical 9th grader, but this is important.
Hi, ladies. So before I introduce myself, I'm just going to give you guys pads. Okay. I'll start with this side.
That's Nokuzola Ndwandwe, a menstrual hygiene activist and founder of an organization called Team Free Sanitary Pads. Nokuzola does these menstrual health workshops like this with schools, churches, and communities. And she works globally as a women's rights activist, such as with UN Women. And today she's meeting with groups of girls at Mvopa High School to show them different period products.
I'm sure you guys already know what a sanitary pad is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what a panty liner is?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what a tampon is?
No. Yes.
Okay.
She's also there to dispel some taboos. For example, tampons are not widely used in this area. This is because there are sometimes misconceptions about it affecting a woman's virginity. So those got a particular response.
And you have to keep the string outside. The reason why I have to keep the string outside is that after
The girls need some assurance that the product won't get stuck inside, but there's still lots of uneasy teen giggles. Then, Nokuzola shifts from teaching the girls about sanitary products to the economic burden of menstruating.
I'm sure when you walk in the shops, you see that the pads are expensive and you have to choose between either buying bread or buying a pad. And we want that to stop.
The previous Minister of the Department of Women, Batabile Dlamini, has put the number of women and girls in South Africa who are not able to fully access sanitary products as high as 7 million. One study found that around 25% of learners had missed school because of their period. Whatever the exact numbers may be, the cost of period products is a huge barrier for many girls continuing with school.
If people cannot afford period products, it tells us a lot about what they can and cannot afford. It is an indicator of impoverishment. It is an indicator of the lack of basic services and basic needs being met.
This is Ponto Pilane. When she was a student, she founded the Free to Bleed campaign. Ponto explains how period poverty can also have a domino effect on issues like teen pregnancy and economically dependent relationships.
It shows also through when there's no money in the household for period products and other basic needs. Young people, particularly who are girls, are often forced into relationships with older working men in order to meet the needs that their family has. We see that these disparate relationships have an impact not only on the health and well-being of these young women, but also on their ability to not fall pregnant. And there is this domino effect that happens in collaboration with period poverty at the same time.
Ponto wanted this to stop. So she entered a student competition in 2015 about what young people would bring to Parliament if they could. And she focused on free sanitary products. Not only did she win the competition, she wrote a policy brief and continued advocacy, including speaking directly to the South African Parliament.
Going to Parliament was very scary. Of course, sitting in front of these old, experienced political leaders and being as young as I was and saying, hey, do your job. You have to do your job.
And it was their job. The previous president, Jacob Zuma, had promised free sanitary products to women who needed them in as far back as 2011. It took a few years, but in 2018, the then finance minister, Tito Mboweni, made an announcement in his midterm budget speech that was a bit of a shock.
As of the 1st of April 2019, government will zero rate the following items. Number 1, sanitary pads.
This meant South Africans were no longer going to pay the 15% value-added tax on sanitary pads that essentially labelled them as luxury goods. The announcement also allocated funds for pads to be distributed freely in schools. The fact that the announcement came from this economic part of the government was huge for activists like Ponto.
Period poverty is an issue that is being taken seriously, and not in terms of just health and the dignity of young people, but also from an economic point of view. So that was a win. However, that is a half victory because there are more period products than just pads, and we would love to see that being removed out of all period products.
It was just sanitary pads, and only the tax was scrapped, so definitely not a fully effective change. Importantly, those millions allocated to get the government sanitary project up and running didn't seem to do as much as hoped. Ponto says the results were dismal, with problems in getting and storing the products, meaning they often didn't reach the learners. This is part of why Nokuzola, who you heard from earlier, does a lot of school outreach. She says many students only receive government-sponsored pads from their schools some of the time, and have to awkwardly ask about it. Ultimately, Nokuzola tells the girls from Mbopa High School that she wants something much bigger.
So what I'm fighting for is that we have access to menstrual health products for free.
The name of Nokuzola's organization is also pretty clear about this mission: Team Free Sanitary Pads. She wants to make all period products free, and she thinks there's a precedent. There's another product that's often available in public bathrooms.
Condoms are accessible, but menstruation is not a choice, but sex is a choice. And so we want pads to be free because
male condoms have been freely available through the Department of Health in the country since the 90s, and that rollout was increased significantly amid the HIV/AIDS crisis. Sadly, the same can't be said for menstrual products. Despite the breakthrough announcement in 2018 scrapping the tax, there were still large gaps in women's menstrual care. So, Nokuzola launched a campaign.
And in 2019, I started a petition to accelerate the fight to eradicate period poverty.
The petition also called for other ways to improve women's economic lives, such as equal pay and paid menstrual leave. Nokuzola and others ended up organizing a big march in 2022 to petition the country's Department of Women, Youth and Persons Living with Disabilities to do more.
And we marched to the South African government, calling on the South African government to accelerate and recognize menstrual health as a human rights issue. We delivered the petition. I think it had over 30,000 signatures at that time.
Some of these marches are particularly memorable because someone brought a costume of a giant red-stained sanitary pad that would hop along in the crowd and in front of government departments. It's an image that's hard to forget.
However, the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities continued to drag its feet.
Eventually, Nokuzola and other activists changed their strategy. They gathered enough signatures in order to get the petition straight to Parliament to ask for a menstrual health rights bill and law. That process is currently still underway, going through the different parts of the national government in the hopes that it will become policy for all. While the political battle for free period products may be steep, Ponzo is convinced it would deeply transform the lives of girls and women.
Research has shown that the economic impact would be so much higher, particularly for women and girls, where when women and girls finish schools, it's not just their individual lives that are transformed, it's the lives of their families and the households and the communities that they come from that benefit from this. And so this is a long-term economic and welfare investment. And it might seem like it would not take just one thing, like period products, of course, but a commitment to period products means a commitment to other gender issues.
With so much at stake, activists are committed to making this change a reality for all women, from a rural classroom to the country's parliament. For the hidden economics of remarkable women, I'm Elna Schutz.
Coming up, more on how affordable period products could be a game changer for girls. More on that after the break. Welcome back to the Hidden Economics of Remarkable Women, a production of Foreign Policy. I'm Rena Ninen. Next, I talked to Sia Towo, director of the nonprofit Femme International. Her organization offers menstrual health education, conducts research, and distributes period products in East Africa. She starts by sharing what she thinks are the biggest barriers towards reducing period poverty.
Dismantling menstrual stigma and menstrual shame is not something can be done by one person. It's need collaboration. In some communities, when you are menstruating, you will be alienated from your family. They believe you are dirty. Some community, you're not supposed to touch anything. You're not supposed to cook because you are dirty, because they believe menstruation is dirtiness. It can really contribute to missed days in school. It can even lead to how a girl can feel about her own body. And it can affect a girl's confidence. My confidence was really affected when I saw my first period. So,
you've written that your experience as a girl really pushed you and inspired you to do the work you do today. Tell me a little bit about that.
In village, there's no access of many information about many things. I didn't find myself looking period as menstrual product as something I will be acquiring and get immediately, I grew up with a mother, a very shy mother. And also I am a very shy girl myself. So I've never learned anything about menstruation from my mom. Only one day I woke up and my mom was like, when she saw that I was developing breast, she realized, she's growing up. Maybe I should tell her about this. So the only thing she told me was, one day you wake up and you find blood, but don't be scared. It is fine. And you don't have to run away. If I am home, you can talk to me about it. That was it.
How did you feel when she said that? It's kind of ominous and not a lot of details.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the last sentence. So if you've been told you see blood, you don't even know blood. Okay, I'll see blood. From where? Will it be from my eyes, my mouth, my nose? Well, where? From a wound? And so I didn't take it seriously because I didn't even know much. But I was now in secondary school. I didn't have any lesson from my mom. I didn't have any lesson from my teachers, but from my peers. That's how my menarche journey was. Because girls who have started their period, they have pads. So you see how they wear the pads and you learn. So my lessons, I derived my lesson from my peers.
So Sia, how did someone who grew up with very traditional roots, you don't talk about periods, you don't mention them, you keep quiet, you stay away when you have them, how did you start to rethink and transform your thinking on periods? How did that happen?
So in 2016, I encountered Femme International. It's when I met and I heard about Femme International and I learned about the work they are doing. For me, it was really interesting. And also it was a shocking thing for me to hear that there is a platform where girls and women can freely talk about their body, freely, which now this is what pushed me to now think, maybe this is where I can start thinking and working. So I started learning about their product. And what was fascinating is the menstrual cup. So one day they showed me the menstrual cup and my eyes were like, what? There's no way this can go to my vagina at all. No way. And I was like, I will never wear the cup. So they left the cup with me. They were like, you can have it as a present. They gave me a free ruby cup. And I stayed with that cup for 2 good years without wearing it because I was scared. Every time I tried to put it in, I was like, no way I'm going to wear this cup. But then I stayed for 2 years, and after 2 years, I started wearing the cup. I was really happy. Then I was like, wow, this is a change of my life. This is a game changer. There's no way I'll go back to pad. Then in 2020, they were looking for someone to work with them. So I started having conversation with Femme International, and they were happy to give me some time for me to finish my maternity because my boy was 2 months. So when my boy was 3 months, I started working with them, and they gave me a chance to go to work with my child. So this was a privilege for me.
One free menstrual cup, and it transformed your entire life. One thing, Sia, your organization is doing is it's working to distribute a lot cheaper and more sustainable period products. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
We are not against disposable pads because we know people have options. And but we are trying to encourage sustainable products, and this is they are eco-friendly, So we are advocating on reusable pads. We are working with AfriPads. They are based in Uganda. They have amazing reusable pads. Also, we are working with Salt and Ruby Cup. These are menstrual cups.
It's worth mentioning here the reusable pads can last up to 2 years, and the menstrual cup lasts for 10 years.
We teach these young girls in school on how to care and use these products because they need to be cared because they are reusable products, especially the pads. We teach them on how to use them and how to manage them and how to clean them and how to put them in the sun in a proper way. So the reusable pad is very, very acceptable. Girls are accepting it without having any fear. But for the menstrual cup, it's still a challenge because also the cup is stigmatized. There's stigma around menstrual cup.
What do you think the ideal government solution might be to address period poverty?
We need to include everybody in this conversation. Men, women, girls, boys, government leaders, different ministries, maybe Ministry of Health, maybe Ministry of Education, because these two ministries work together with us. We are trying to collaborate with the government, the local leaders. If the local leaders will be able to carry our message around, I think this is the way to address period poverty.
And there's been progress on this. Even the tax issue you talk about, since Kenya became the first country to really cut taxes on sanitary pads and tampons. That was in 2004. At least 17 countries have apparently followed suit. In Kenya, the government is supposed to provide free sanitary products. What are you seeing on the ground? Is that happening?
I've been hearing a lot of stakeholders working around this area. They are also trying to have an open conversation with the government to have tax exemption, where we are trying to have free products and these products to be distributed in school. We need to have an openness around this conversation. Some people fear to carry the message. Patriarchal system is kicking in some communities. When you talk about menstruation to men, they are shocked. Like, what are you saying? Why would you say something like that? Especially in front of elders. We had a visit in one community and we were kicked out by the leaders.
You've mentioned the patriarchal undertones that you can't ignore that makes the issue of discussing even period poverty hard. How do you educate and win over the men and boys and change their attitudes? Because having them as allies, I can imagine, would be very important.
If it affects a woman, it also affects you. Imagine you have a wife, imagine you have a sister and your sister suffers a bullying and she's been bullied by your fellow man or your fellow boy. How would you feel? Because we say future is female, but yes, I believe future is female, but future is female not by themselves. It's by also having men along the way. Yeah, we rely on each other.
Sia, it's such a joy having you on today. Thank you for explaining this perspective and the importance of this. I learned so much, and congratulations on all the work you've done.
Thank you so much, Irina. This has been amazing because my first ever podcast.
Next week, we look at girls' reproductive health. What are the best ways to improve their access to contraceptives? And how would family planning increase economic potential? And where is the fight for reproductive rights gaining ground? We go to the West African country of Benin, where they recently legalized abortion within the first 12 weeks of pregnancy.
Once the head of state was won over to the cause, that helped enormously.
How did they succeed in getting this law passed, and how is it actually going on the ground? All that next week on the podcast. And that does it for today's show. The Hidden Economics of Remarkable Women is a production of Foreign Policy and is supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Roberta Buffett Institute for Global Affairs at Northwestern University. The Hidden Economics of Remarkable Women is hosted by me, Rena Ninen. Laura Rosbrow-Tellem is our senior producer. Rob Sachs, our managing director. Nicholas Petrie-Mitchell provided production assistance, and Elna Schutz contributed reporting for this episode. Our thanks to you, and we'll be back in your feed next week.